Controversy is never exempt from sports or motorsports, including Monster Jam. Over Monster Jam's 30 plus years of bringing the sport to the masses, there have been numerous controversial official calls, controversial events, or even just controversial moments that have gone on to be talked about still to this day. But what are those moments? Well, join us today as we talk about the most controversial moments in Monster Jam. In my worst monster truck event of all time video, many of you made sure I knew about this, well, infamous event. And yes guys, I have seen this event. Purely concrete events aren't uncommon in Monster Jam, or at least they used to be. The Thunder National series was all about this. It included no dirt and just crush cars. Even after the discontinuation of the Thunder National series, they included solely crush car and concrete floor shows in Monster Jam's schedule all the way up until 2018. That all changed in February of 2019 when Monster Jam made the bizarre announcement that they were no longer including freestanding crush cars out on the track. This meant that post February 15th, all events would no longer include freestanding crush cars. By that, I mean cars that were used as lane markers and then later used for freestyle. Only cars that were embedded into the dirt would be used, something that has continued to remain to this day. So how does this have anything to do with Manchester? Well, quite simple. The venue was not keen on dirt being brought in for the show, and with freestanding crush cars being removed, Monster Jam's hands were tied. Despite the impressive innovation done by the track crew, that didn't stop the sheer backlash from fans both in attendance and fans from around the world absolutely hating this event. It would make the rounds all over social media, even also being picked up by mainstream news outlets. The concrete blocks were put there for two-wheel skills, but the trucks really couldn't get the traction to stop and continue the moonwalk. If freestanding crush cars were added, or if the venue had actually allowed dirt to be present, this event probably wouldn't be in this video. You might be questioning why a truck design of all things would be mentioned on a list talking about controversial moments, but I don't think you all understand how badly this design was received. Gravedigger the Legend is, in my opinion, one of the greatest Monster Jam trucks to exist and compete on the circuit. And with 2014 being as big as it gets, they went all out for a new design. Or so they had hoped. The design essentially stripped away the blue paint for a new purple paint job while keeping some of the grey details. Most interesting was the inclusion of the Gravedigger Ghost adorned to the side of the truck, though it was quite faded into the paint. While Monster Jam might have been excited for the new design, the community, however, was almost certainly not. There are people who don't mind the design, myself included, and some who actually kinda like it, but the majority had spoken. It was disgusting. Just read these Facebook comments, you can tell that people absolutely hated it. The backlash for this design was clear, and as such, it never made it to the circuit. These next two entries both have things in common. Both very controversial calls in the worst possible spot imaginable, in the competition to determine the World Racing Champion. Let's start off with O'Donnell and Mentz. World Finals 15 was the first 32 truck bracket, meaning that you would have to go through 5 rounds of racing to become champion. So the pressure for winning your race and advancing on in the bracket was crucial. For the second semi-final round to determine who faced off against Adam Ensign and Gravedigger the Legend, Lee O'Donnell in Iron Man and Tom Mentz in Max D faced off in what was going to be an epic battle. However, upon exiting Thunder Alley, Tom Mentz was shut off for seemingly unknown reasons. He did kinda slap the Jersey barrier, but honestly this wasn't a reason to shut him off mid-race. The race was then promptly reran, in which Tom Mentz came out as the victor. What made this so controversial was O'Donnell's interview after the race and the call itself. You see, the previous year there were multiple instances of trucks randomly shutting down mid-race. Unfortunately for those drivers, they would be eliminated from the racing bracket, with no questions asked, and just advance to the next race. I'm assuming this wasn't informed to O'Donnell, as that would explain why he was so furious after the race had been undone. He would tell Leslie Mears,
if the shoe was on the other foot, they would have parked it. They know it, I know it, everybody else knows it. So that's probably what stings the most.
I guess karma would in some way strike Tom Meents back, because in the final round, he would lose the race in a spectacular fashion after losing control and essentially started freestyling in racing.
Maximum destruction.
But this was definitely not the first or even the last time a controversial call was made that ultimately decided the World Racing Championship. World Finals 20 might be largely looked down upon by most fans, but its championship race could not have been more storybook. The hometown hero, Bari Misawa, taking on the guy who at that time had been to the championship race 5 different times and lost all of them, that being Jimmy Cretin in the Bounty Hunter. Despite the implications of the race, with Misawa having the potential of becoming a champion in his hometown, or Jimmy Cretin finally becoming a world racing champion, the official call for this race had to be correct. The Inside Monster Jam podcast featuring Byron Misawa actually shed some light on this situation. He would go on to say the following.
What happened was I staged the truck and the truck actually rocked back after I stopped and it rolled out of the staging beam. So at that moment when the starter tripped the Christmas tree lights to start, it automatically kind of fouled me out because I wasn't in the staging beam.
Whatever your view, Jimmy Cretin finally earning himself a World Racing Championship after 5 grueling attempts previously did make the event memorable, and especially the racing competition. Like Misawa would go on to say, he's pretty much moved on from it, as he believes that if he let it still get to him, it would haunt him to this very day, and he doesn't want that to be the case. Monster Jam World Finals 2 might just take the cake as one of the most controversial events in Monster Truck history. Now, don't mix this up with me saying the event is bad, because that is definitely not what I'm saying. In fact, as I've grown older, I've come to appreciate this event more and more. But this event was filled with drama and controversial moments. The controversy even carried on well after the event had subsided. Let's start off with racing. The racing competition at this event, while intense, was also quite problematic for a multitude of reasons. Many trucks would carry so much speed that they didn't have any time to stop before the barriers, which also was something that occurred the previous year. Not to mention the infamous water pipe moment. For those who somehow aren't aware of this, during the race between Tom Meents and Eldon Depew, Meents would clip the pole in Thunder Alley, going flying and bursting the water pipe. This then caused the whole right side of Thunder Alley to be completely flooded. After numerous efforts to try and subside the water and even trialing running a race through Thunder Alley, they ended up having to do racing inside the venue and do regular J-Hook style racing as opposed to the Vegas style racing. This would also go on to cause even more issues and controversy. The race between Lyle Hancock and Brian Barthel was notable as due to them adapting the racing on the fly, they didn't bother to check if Barthel could see the flagsman, causing Barthel to miss the green light and get a fair start in the race. Fortunately for Barthel, his pleas would be answered and a rerun of the race would occur, though he would still end up losing, but at least this time he lost fair and square. Freestyle is what was most controversial to die-hard fans that grew up with the sport during the 80s and 90s. At this time, freestyle was still somewhat of a new concept, and the direction of which it would be taken in was still up in the air, and the whole idea of destroying trucks just to entertain a crowd was somewhat heavily frowned upon. While most of the community nowadays looks back at this event with nostalgia and fondness, seeing the carnage being unleashed on the track and trucks, and sometimes competitor trucks, is what makes this event so memorable. But that also was ammunition for others to show their distaste for what Monster Jam had become. Looking back at Truck World, we can see numerous people's responses to the event, most of which were negative, and one of which said it was a disgrace to monster trucks. Even still, I think this event solely helped change the perspective of fans. To some, it signified a very stark contrast to what monster trucks were originally about, and to others, like myself, represented a new direction that ultimately brought Monster Jam into what it is today. By far, easily the most controversial aspect of Monster Jam has been its handling of judging for freestyle and other scored competitions. It's not just limited to today's method of scoring. Even when Monster Jam used professional judges, or the 3 to 6 randomly selected judges, controversy would arise from questionable decisions made from the judges. At the end of the day, judging is quite subjective. There's no right or wrong answer. It's all a matter of opinion. A while ago, I made this poll asking you guys who do you think should have won World Finals 20, and I was unsurprised to see that the answers were varied between multiple drivers. A lot of people actually believed Leduc should have won, a fact that I just cannot wrap my head around, but this makes up my point. My opinion of who should have won varies largely from a majority who voted for Leduc, or the few that voted for some of the others, and we all have different ideas of what makes a great freestyle run. Unfortunately though, Monster Jam's edition of fan judging through judgeszone.com has brought more of these issues to the masses due to a large majority of the crowd in attendance having the ability to change the outcome of an event. This debate was actually brought up on the Inside Monster Jam podcast with Tristan England, where the three of them discuss fan judging. While some of the arguments were put to bed, so to speak, numerous others were brought up in the comments, with Monster Jam's reasons behind the inclusion of judgeszone.com being an integral part of the sport now, unfortunately means that fans will still find controversy every so often when they believe the wrong driver won a given competition due to fan judging. Ultimately, Monster Jam and monster trucks in general have never had a shortage of controversial moments. Through these moments, we can take a step back and understand why they happened. Some of these, after all, shaped the sport into what it has become today. And I'm not sure where the sport would be without these controversial moments. And well, that's all we have for today. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon with some more Monster Truck content.